Hi there. So with 1 week left before the final project is due, I just want to go over a few things just to make sure we're all on the same page and you know what I'll be looking for in these final projects. So first, due dates. It is due on the 7th, December 7th. It's the last Friday of classes, but there'll be no late penalty for any final project reports turned in by December 11th, which I think is Tuesday of exam week. I've got another exam I'm giving on Monday, so I'm not going to be able to look at the projects anyway until Tuesday. So please get your projects in on the weekend if you can, but if you need another day or two, Tuesday's fine. Um, so also note today that the method section is due today, November 30th. But again, I'm not going to look at those till Sunday, so if you need another day or two to finish them up, to get them just right, feel free to take it. There's no late penalty for any of this, any of these project things, as long as you get them to me by, in time to grade them. All right, so those are the dates we have to worry about. Now, when you're writing the reports, I'll tell you right now, what I'm looking for in the reports is a good story. And going from the introduction through the methods, results, discussion, everything should sort of tie together. You should pose a problem in the introduction and a reasonable way to address that to answer a question. Give me the methods you're using, and in that methods, I should be able to see how you're going to measure whatever it is you're going to measure or detect. And then show me the results and give me your analysis. So it's all a story. Think of it as a story. Everything should tie together. Try to avoid too many distractions and extraneous information. It's a story. Everything should fall in line, reinforce to the reader, which is me in this case, what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and finally do it. Okay, so we've already talked a lot about the introduction. Hopefully you've worked on this quite a bit. You'll be getting back your peer reviews this weekend, I guess, and take a few minutes to look at what people thought of your writing. If they gave you specific comments, try to address them. Reread your introduction, give it another draft. It's always good to revise your own writing. Make it cleaner, make it easier to read, more logical. Make sure that you clearly are stating your hypothesis, your question, and how you intend to answer that question. So I expect those introductions will be really good now because you've put a little time into them. For the methods section, now I know these are due today, but if you need a little time to work on these, to revise them, make sure that everything I need or that one of your peers might need to reproduce your work is in there. So those of you who are working on models from manuscripts know that it's really valuable to have all the details in the same document, the equations, the variables, the numerical methods, everything in one place. If I can read it and see how I might reproduce your work, then your methods are good. Also make sure and talk about any of your data analysis, statistics, that kind of thing, so that it's clear to me how you're going to analyze your simulation results. Don't put your code in there, put it in the appendix. Don't give me a recipe. Don't tell me a diary that I did this and I did that and I did that. Just give me the equations, give me the variables, the geometry. Let me use my imagination to figure out what order you did them. So that's a good thing to think about. It's not a diary, it's just all the facts. Yeah, and also with the results, when you show your results, so you run your simulations, you show your results, make sure that you describe the results with text. Don't just put a bunch of figures in there. Figures mean nothing without the text to describe them. Tell me what they are, what conditions you use to run them. Give me any data analysis, statistics that you might have calculated. And in that text, refer to the figures. Figure 1, Figure 2, Table 3. Each figure itself should be labeled. Figure 1, Figure 2 with a caption. Tables should have a title at the top with enough explanatory information in each one of the figures and tables that I can kind of figure out what it is without having to read through your text. That's the goal. Make sure you put in there what conditions, what variables you might be specifically looking at, what each line in the chart looks like. Make sure there's a legend in any graphs so I can tell what the curves are. Yeah, so figures and tables should be more or less self-explanatory without the text, but you need the text of the results as well. The only thing here is avoid any interpretation or conclusions. You're only giving me the evidence and not trying to draw conclusions. Those, of course, go in the discussion section, wherein usually you summarize your results in the first paragraph or so, and then you tell me if you had any conclusions. Tell me why you concluded what you did. And this should circle back to the question stated in the introduction. So that's why you try to put a clear question so that in your discussion you can answer that question. Be sure to discuss the limitations. Any kind of research you might need to further explain your hypothesis or to prove it. And sometimes you might run a study and you can't prove what you were trying to prove, and that's okay. If you can't, try to discuss why, limitations of your model, assumptions you made, and then talk about the further research you might need to prove it if you were still going to do that. And last but not least, don't forget all models are wrong. It's your job in this entire paper to sort of tell me why you're doing the model. Tell me what assumptions you're using. What insights are you trying to get from the model that it's easiest to get from a model and maybe not from an experiment or some analytical study of your subject. So tell me why you're doing this. Tell me what you can learn and what you conclude and what you can take from your model to the real world. So that's the goal. And remember, the model simulation experiment paradigm that we're working here. Everything should tie together. Your theoretical understanding of the subject, your model with all of its assumptions and numerical approximations, and then any experimental data or real world phenomena that you're trying to address. So, close that loop and try to make sure that in your report there's a story that I can read from the beginning to the end. That's what I'm looking for. And those papers that receive the best grades in this final report are always the one that tell a story, that do it with clear writing and plenty of data and descriptions, and they make it easy for me to understand what you're doing, why you're doing, and what the results were. That's your goal in writing these reports. I can, if you have preliminary drafts, I can try to look at some of these, but I can tell you that things get very busy next week. But I'm happy to try to help you with some of these questions if you have any. So feel free to ask. Anyway, that's it. Get these reports done. Don't wait until next weekend. Do them now, because I promise you it's going to be hard to get this done well unless you're working constantly through the next week on this. So I will see you all in lab this week, and I'll be around next week. In fact, here's the availability I'll have today in lab. I'll be there all day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, pretty much after 1 p.m. I'm available. Most of those days, if you want to meet, send me an email. Let's make an appointment, and I'll try to make some time for you. Also, obviously, during office hours, I'm available, but that can get busy as well. And then lab next week, I'll be there. So that's it. I'll see you guys in lab or in office hours.